Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Practical Life. This is Ashley Nicole. How are you all today? I hope everything is going well. Thank you for coming back to another live. We're going to go ahead and get started with this live today. As you can tell by the title, discussing we are discussing today the topic of imposter syndrome. And I know a lot of people have heard of this before. You may have experienced it, and it is no joke. So, today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 signs of knowing that you may be experiencing imposter syndrome and how to deal with it. Like, how can you overcome it? Right. So, let's go ahead and get started. Now, have you ever felt like a fraud? Like you went to school all these years, for example, you may be a doctor, you may be specialized in a specific practice, right? You got your bachelor's degree, you went on to get your master's, you may have gotten another master's, you went on to medical school, you have all these certifications, but you still feel like you don't know what you're doing. If that's you, if you've ever felt that way, you may have been experiencing imposter syndrome. So let's talk about it. And I have my notes. So, because y'all know I can't remember everything, I have my notes. So if you see me looking here, that's what I'm looking at. So now, also, let's talk about what imposter syndrome is. You may have heard of it, you may have heard other people talking about it. It is like a psychological term, but what is it, right? It's a feeling of you feel like you're inadequate, you feel like you're incompetent in certain areas of your life. And most likely that may be your career. You may be feeling like that in your workplace, in your career. Sometimes you can feel incompetent and inadequate, as a parent, as a sibling, as a certain role. If you have a certain role in your family, you can feel like that in that particular role as well. But most commonly, it's found in the workplace, right? Also, you should know that 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome throughout their career or anytime in their career. And I think that's only because, throughout certain points in your career, you have an early career, you're a newbie, you're not really sure what you're doing. Really, no matter how many years you've gone to school, everybody at some point is in the learning phase, and really throughout any point in our lives we are learning throughout. So you're gonna feel like, oh, I'm not really sure, like I learned this but I'm not really sure what to do. And to be honest, when you think about anybody that has gone to college or has going to get a graduate degree, you are really learning the basics, right? There are not a lot of programs where you are getting that hands-on learning, you are getting that practical learning, right? You are just getting the basics of what those foundational topics or foundational things are when it comes to your profession. You're not, getting hands-on learning or in the beginning, in your graduate career or, with your bachelor's degree. You're just touching on, let me get the basics out of the way. Let me understand what this is. Let me get knowledge of this particular topic. Let me understand the history of this particular topic, right? So you're not really getting that. So anybody that's new, you are going to feel like, okay, I learned this, but I don't really know how to apply it, right? Anybody is going to feel like that. I don't care who you are. So keep that in mind as well. So 70% of people will experience it, right? Now, um, so I'm going to again share with you some of the signs and some of the characteristics, because there are different types of imposter syndrome, in my opinion. You have those different people with those certain personality traits, those certain characteristics of how they view things, how they do things. So I'm going to get into that. So it might be helpful for you to kind of understand maybe what type you may fall in, so that way you can kind of problem solve right around that and prepare yourself and be proactive in overcoming what you're experiencing. So let's get on with it. The first type is someone, this is the first type of person that may be experiencing imposter syndrome. So, this may be a person that's super efficient. This is a super efficient person. So, they always judge themselves on how fast they're doing something or how easy it is for them to do something. They never really look at their efforts, right? They're never really kind of, they're judging again the speed instead of the effort that they put into doing something, right? And if they don't do something efficiently, as efficient as they should in their mind, then they feel shameful about it. Like, oh man, I could have done that faster, or I could have sped up a little bit. They're always criticizing themselves for that, right? And also, the expectations they have for themselves are super duper high. These are the people who most likely got all A's in school. They were never a B student. They were never a sometimes C student. They always got all A's. And so if you think about it, if you're a person who in high school, college, or graduate program, right? It's like if you go from high school to bachelor's degree, right on to your master's degree, right on to medical school, you are a professional student. All you know is school. You can imagine that someone that has kind of gone on that track, they they've gotten all A's, they are not really used to failure. And when you think about it, that could be a problem because you have to understand in life, there are going to be challenges and failures, depending on how you view it, are just challenges. So these are people that have never had to encounter or experience failures in their professional life. And that can be an issue going forward, right? So they're not used to failure. So then they don't know how to handle setbacks. And remember, in one of my last lives, I said that a setback is what? A setup for a comeback. Okay. So, but they've never had to experience that. So, can you imagine someone, how they would view themselves once they have accomplished all this stuff and then all of a sudden they have a setback? I would imagine that they would have some type of feelings of imposter syndrome, right? So, how do they kind of overcome, if you're a person within this type of imposter, right? How do you overcome that? How do you overcome feeling like you need to be super efficient at something, that you need to be super fast at something? Like, that's the only way that you can measure your success, right? Well, in my opinion, you got to think about viewing yourself as a work in progress. Nobody's perfect, right? As I explained before, when you are new in your profession and new at a job or anything like that, you've got to give yourself some time to learn. It doesn't matter how many years you've been to school, it doesn't matter how many certificates you've gotten, really also what real world experience that you've gotten. If you're new to something, you have to give yourself that grace period of learning and understanding how to apply what you know. So understand that you're a work in progress just like everybody else. Now, on the flip side, I get that it's hard to, if you are a person who always feels like you need to be super efficient, it's hard for you to get to that point where you say, okay, I'm a work in progress, like I'm learning, I'm getting there. So then that means you have to give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace and don't be super hard on yourself. And I'm going to get into why we might feel like that later in this live. Um, Also, if it's hard for you to get to a point where you understand that you're a work in progress, what I suggest is that you hone specific skills. Because see, these people that feel like that they need to always be super efficient, they are forever learners, but they're not really, how can I say it? It's almost like procrastination because they feel inadequate, right? So it's almost like they're always in a learning mode where they always need to get like a certificate. They always need to get specialized in something. They're always trying to move forward in that area, like education, or or being educated about what they're doing, but they really never use it because they feel inadequate. And when you think about it, it don't make any sense. But in their mind, it does. Like, okay, I need to get better at this by acquiring a certificate, by acquiring a degree. But all the while, when you get there, you're not really going to use it because you feel like you're not qualified enough to use it. So hone specific skills when you need them. Don't just be spending money on degree, trying to get a degree and certificates and stuff like that just because, right? You want to hone specific skills when you need them. And once you are very efficient with those skills, then that will kind of, get rid of some of those feelings of inadequacy, right? So now, the second one I have is, oh my goodness, everybody knows somebody like this. You may feel like you're an imposter if, or you might know somebody like this. They are what I call the loner. Like, this is the independent worker. They don't need anybody's help. They don't want to work in groups. But why, right? They want to always work alone because they feel like if they're working with someone, if they're working in a group, right? Somebody gonna spot them out to say they don't know what they're doing. Now, two things to that. The first thing is that if somebody thinking that or saying that, it might be three things to this. Let me see. The first thing is that you thinking that somebody else is going to spot you out. If they do, or if they feel like you don't know what you're doing, that ain't none of your business. They can think whatever they want to think, right? Right, but these are the feelings of inadequacy that you have about yourself. So you always thinking, okay, is somebody gonna spot me out if you got imposter syndrome, right? Okay, the second thing is, um if you're working in a group, like you're gonna feel like you're, again, a fraud. Like, again, someone is going to spot me out. You always want to accomplish things on your own. And so how do you kind of overcome that? Because these type of people, they never probably ask a question because they feel like the question that they're asking is a dumb question. And we all know that there is no such thing as a dumb question. Why do people ask questions? To gain clarity, right? So that you feel more comfortable. It's almost like you working against yourself if you this type of person. Because you're not going to ask questions, but you need to ask questions to gain clarity about what you're doing. You see what I'm saying? But they're not going to do it because they're going to feel like, okay, well, if I ask that, they're going to say, well, why would that person ask that? They should already know that, even though people may not even be thinking that. You see what I'm saying? So, probably in short, for all of this, is that people with imposter syndrome, they worry about what others are saying, thinking, doing too much. Okay. So, but if you are the loner type, you need to not worry alone. And I tell my clients this all the time in session. People who have anxiety about stuff that hasn't even happened yet, that hasn't even come to fruition, that they have no evidence that it's going to happen, right? That it's a slim chance this is going to happen. If you're worried about something, that's a natural feeling, right? Things happen to where you sometimes worry, but don't worry alone. If you're at work and you don't know what you're doing, 9 times out of 10, it's a whole bunch of people that don't know what they're doing. 9 times out of 10, might be two, maybe three more people that you're working with that don't know what they're doing, right? So Start to ask those questions, right? Ask for help. Don't worry alone. You will feel so much better, right? Once you're able to kind of get over, communicating with others, asking them things that you need to know and things like that. Now, number three, and let me know if y'all know some people like this, or if you want to share if you've encountered this, right? Because imposter syndrome is real. It's real. And sometimes it's natural, right? And I think for some people it's more common than others for a whole bunch of reasons, but I want to get into that. So number three, you may have imposter syndrome, and this really goes hand in hand with it. If you are a perfectionist, perfectionists, they life in shambles. They life in shambles because they always got to be in control. And we know that it's a whole 99.9% of stuff you can't control. You can try. And I'll be honest, I have perfectionist tendencies. I do. I do. But you know what? I have to say, what I had it really, really bad until I had children. When I had kids, oh man, I had no choice but to throw it out the window because there is no perfect parent, there is no perfect kid. You it could be something as simple as going to the grocery store with the baby. You didn't packed up the baby bag, you didn't did everything, you didn't got them in the seat and all of this. Oh, your grocery, you got your list, your grocery list, and all of that. Baby, once you get that kid into the car, crying everywhere, screaming everywhere. You might have to cut your trip short. You might not get everything on your list. You might have to get back in the car altogether. It's been times where, especially when I had the second one, it's been times where I'm gonna have to call my husband and say, okay, you're gonna have to go on the grocery trip with me today because I already know how his little butt about to act. And I ain't got time for it. You know what I'm saying? Or one of them gonna have to stay at home with you so I can get what I need to get done. You see what I'm saying? So perfectionism was thrown out the window once I had kids. It was no more. Sometimes you might want to make sure that when you go out the house, you do a little something to your hair, you put on a little something or whatever. Sometimes when you have those kids, you just might throw on a t-shirt and some shorts. It's in shambles, okay? And I will say too, it's once you get into your routine and things like that, and you kind of know a little bit what to expect, then you get a little bit better. But I will say, once I had a child, perfectionism went out the door. Like, no more of that. Like, we got to let that go. So perfectionists, they want to be in control as much as possible, right? In their minds, there is no room for error, right? So again, it's hard for a perfectionist to look at things like it's a work in progress. It's like when they are assigned something, when they do something in their mind, it's never an expectation from someone else. It's their own expectations of this has to be at 100% and no less because they are judging themselves, right? Now there are some perfectionists where it's hard and difficult for them to be in leadership type of positions. Maybe some of them is difficult to be in managerial positions because they may become, and they might not even know it, they may become micromanagers because remember, they need to be in control, right? It may be difficult for them to delegate work to other people because they always got to have, again, the control and that oversight of, okay, instead of allowing someone to, instead of delegating a task to someone to let them do it in their own way with their own style, right? They want to make sure that what they're doing and they are looking to see if they're doing it the way they would do it, when really you shouldn't do that. As a manager, you want people to grow into their own type of leader and manager and things like that. So you don't want to stifle their creativity, their innovation and all of that, right? But people who are perfectionists, they have to be at 100% all the time. So you can imagine, if sometimes you make mistakes and you get to that point, then you feel like if you're not ever at 100% and everything is not always controlled, then you're going to feel like you're a fraud. Just bottom line, right? These type of people, they never feel accomplished. They could have went to 1,000 schools. They probably have 5 degrees, right? They might be the top of the top percent, and they will say, I've done nothing. Like, I need to do more. And other people other people like, what? Like, you've done most, like, you've done a lot. You've done more things than 99% of people. You know what I'm saying? But they don't feel like that. They don't feel like that. And I feel like sometimes this, of course, I feel like it comes from having a toxic mom, right? Or a toxic parent. Because remember, when I talked about toxic parents, right? You are never good enough, right? Anything you do, you're never good enough. So you're always going to be seeking that validation. So if you are this type of, you feel these type of feelings regarding imposter syndrome, then you always seeking that perfection, even though logically you know that it's not there, like there is no such thing, but you are chasing because you never got that validation or emotional stability from your parent. So that's just my little tidbit about that. Also, perfectionists, these people, they're always ruminating on things. They can't let things go. So if something does go awry, or there's a mistake in their work, they ruminate on it for days and days and days. It's like they can't get over it. And if you're not careful, if you continue to go down that road, it could lead to depression, right? Because then if you're continuing to ruminate on something and you are replaying in your head how you could have done it better, how it could have been perfect, if you would have just done this, or if you would have just did it this way, right? Then you start to feel like a failure. You start to feel like you're not good enough. Those sad feelings start to come in. Oh, I can't do the job. I mean, there's so many negative feelings that could come in your head regarding this. So these types of people, they ruminate on different things as well. So how do they overcome it though? Like, if you're in this situation or know somebody that is a perfectionist and is really interfering with their daily lives, because sometimes I ain't gonna lie, y'all, if you work with a perfectionist, they getting on y'all nerves. Like, it's like, okay, can we just move on already? Like, okay, this didn't go right, so what we gonna do next? Instead, they trying to figure out why it didn't go right. Okay, well, at that, we don't even need to be looking at that. We already, the end result was that it didn't go the way we thought it was gonna go. So let's just move on. But they can't do it. So how do they overcome that, right? I recommend that you celebrate your small wins. Any little thing that's, good that has happened for the day. You may have to do this daily. Anything good, any small little thing. If you had 10 tasks to do for the day and you completed one, celebrate completing that one. If you've gotten a certificate, but your big goal is to get the master's degree, but got the certificate out, celebrate that. Like, celebrate your wins throughout your journey. Also, you have to learn how to take mistakes in stride. right? And this is difficult, again, going back to the previous one, where if you've never experienced a failure, especially in your professional life, and all of a sudden, because it's going to happen, right? Then all of a sudden, you experience that, maybe you didn't get the job. And your experience is that you've always gotten the job when you had an interview. Or, just you all of a sudden you made a mistake, within your work, and now it's a huge thing. You know what I'm saying? If you've never experienced that, it's going to be very difficult for you, right? And it will lead to those ruminating feelings. But you have to learn how to take the mistakes in stride and learn from the lessons, right? It's okay to say, in my opinion, it's okay to say, okay, what could I have done better? How could this situation be different? Or how could I learn from this? What is a different viewpoint when I'm looking at this situation, right? It'll make you feel tons better, right? And getting rid of those feelings of inadequacy if you're looking at it from that perspective instead of ruminating on it. So that's the perfectionist. That is the perfectionist. All right, now the fourth type is, oh my gosh, the superhuman. These people feel like they got to work harder and harder. They got to work 10 times more than their colleagues to feel adequate, to for someone to see that they really know what they're doing, even though they have the skills, right? They got the skills, they have the education, they have the experience, but they feel so inadequate that they feel like they got to know 10 times more or work 10 times harder than their colleagues to be recognized as such, right? For them to really kind of measure up. So these are the type of people that stay late to work all the time. You're supposed to leave at 4. You might be staying till 6, right? You working on the weekends. You at work at 5 in the morning. You logging in at 5:30. These are the people who are, workaholics. These are workaholics. They don't really enjoy downtime. They are always trying to find a way to engage in their work. Um, these are people who have sacrificed themselves for their job. And that is a sad place to be, y'all. That's not a good place to be, because I'm telling you, these jobs, these companies, things happen with companies, right? The bottom line for companies or organizations is to make money, not to lose money. So at any rate that they see, okay, this is what we need to cut back on. These are the departments that aren't really doing so well. When we look at everything from, quarterly perspective or from a yearly perspective when it comes to finances, these are the departments that kind of fell below. They've been below for the past couple of years. Okay, let's reevaluate. Let's, look to see if we really need this particular product or a particular department. Baby, they not gonna say, well, no, don't do it, because Lisa, she need her job. She got 2 kids. We're not gonna please. They're gonna say, ixnay, we don't need them. We need to, this how we're gonna keep that, our bottom line or whatever. This is how we're gonna meet, our goals financially as a company. They're gonna get rid of that department. And guess what? As a superhuman, feeling like you need to always do your work, trying to prove yourself, right? Because of your own feelings you have about being inadequate and things like that, right? You didn't give your energy, your time away from your family, time away from yourself. You didn't lost sleep, right? Trying to work so much harder than your colleagues. And I feel like when you go back to the story about what is her name? Raisa Kingney. this is a situation Raisa was in. She was so engulfed in her profession, because I honestly sometimes feel like, and don't get me wrong, I'm trying to say it in the right way. Like, you, of course, you need to make sure and ensure that you are ethical in your profession, especially if you are at that graduate level. You know what I'm saying? That's numero uno. You got to make sure that you're ethical, right? But you've also got to understand that the the way in which you follow those ethics and those morals when it comes to your profession, everybody is not going to do it that way, right? So you might be engulfed in your profession and, are passionate about it in that way, but some people may not. And it varies. It depends on what situation they're in. If Raisa was a person where, a single, no kids, she wasn't married or anything like that, get someone in the profession that's married, they got children, they have 30 years of experience, their mindset, in my opinion, may not be there to say, okay, let me look at every little detail of what somebody did and what somebody didn't do. You see what I'm saying? So, because again, these companies, when it's time for them to let departments go and people, they're going to do it. If it don't meet their bottom line, they're going to do it. And they're not going to think about all the time and energy, all the times that you logged in at 5:30, all the times that you stayed after your work time, all the times that you worked on the weekend. They're not going to be thinking about that. They're going to say, okay, on this date, that's it, right? So those are some ways that the superhuman then the superhuman can kind of overcome the imposter syndrome. Also, it don't even have to be at work, it could be at home, right? If you look, people that want to be super moms and, want to, spend all their time doing engaging in those things, it's not going to fare well for you. You're going to burn yourself out. You have got to figure out a way to make time for yourself, even if it's taking a little walk, even if it's engaging in your passion project, even if it's talking to, your friends or whatever, or, going to dinner with friends and things like that. You have got to find a way to do adult things. You see what I'm saying? Because you're going to get burnt out. So, but another way to kind of overcome this type of imposter syndrome is to stop seeking validation from others. I talked about this in one of my other lives. Stop seeking validation from others. You've got to go internally. You've got to find it within yourself to celebrate yourself. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? It doesn't matter what you're celebrating. As long as it makes sense to you, that's all that matters, right? So stop seeking validation from your coworkers, stop seeking validation from your boss, your company, your spouse, your kids, right? Learn how to validate yourself. Also, these superhumans need, because see, when you are superhuman, when you feel like, you got to do all this work to measure up, and it's kind of like, what are you measuring up to? Who are you measuring up to? That these are like the deep questions that you should be asking yourself, right? But it's like, when you feel like you're doing all of this, maybe in your mind you start to feel like, okay, I'm doing all of this, so I'm getting closer and closer to people feeling like, oh yeah, that is a super mom. Like, oh, she's the super mom. Like, is it for people to say that? But then I feel like if you get to that point, you become a person that's not open and receptive to constructive criticism, right? Like, you're not really open and receptive to changing, or to situations or things that change. You're not really comfortable with that, right? So these people, they have to learn how to accept constructive criticism, right? It's always a different way you could have done something. It's always a different perspective, right? And there's always different ways to meet the goal, and it may not be the path that you took. Somebody else might think of a different path. It may be a more efficient path, or their path might not even work, but it's good to be open and receptive to trying it. You see what I'm saying? Like, your way is not always the best way, if that makes any sense. um Number 5, the fifth type, and this is the last one, the fifth type of imposter syndrome is the expert, right? These people, they have to know it all, right? Because if they don't know it all, they feel like they're going to be exposed for not knowing it all. But there is no possible way that you can know everything. Nobody knows everything. And what is it saying? What is it saying? The person who thinks they know everything knows that they know nothing at all, or something like that. Like, nobody knows everything, y'all. Like, it's impossible, right? So how do you know if you're this type, right? So if you shy away from, and I tell people this all the time, if you shy away from applying to jobs because you don't have one of the requirements, you might be in this category. Like, I don't understand that with people. You look at the job description and they say, okay, you gotta have these 6 things, and you say, your coworkers, but still say your name of my coworkers. If it says you need 6 things and you say, oh man, I can't, that one's not for me. I can't apply to that one. That's not what you mean. Come on now, one thing. You got to remember that on every job, you are going to have to learn something. Nobody knows everything at any position. That's why they have a training period, right? And if it's not a formal training period, you have someone that you're going to pair up with so you can learn how they do the job. So you're not going to know everything. So you got to give yourself time to learn. You got to give yourself time to learn these things, right? If you are, and I will tell you, Black people, we are the ones who do that, who look at those job descriptions and say, okay, they said you got to have this, so I can't apply to this one, and won't apply. But white people, they will apply to those jobs if they don't have any of them. But see that when you think about that for a minute, right? There's a deeper issue of feeling inadequate, right? Of feeling like you're incompetent, the lack of confidence, the lack of self-esteem within yourself. And could be a whole nother live, a whole nother video, but where does that come from? Especially when you have, I'm giving an example for a white person to say, oh, I don't have any of these, but I'm interested in the job. Let me go ahead and apply. And they will apply. And guess what? They're going to get the job because you didn't even apply. So what the choice is, that's the choice that's left. You see what I'm saying? You didn't even give yourself a chance to be able to fight for yourself if you got the interview. Because who knows, you could have been the only one that applied for that job. Simply on the fact that other people are saying, well, no, I don't have this, I'm not going to apply. You could have been the only one. Instead of 10 applicants, there could have been 2 applicants. Okay, at least you would have gotten a chance to fight for yourself. And they say, okay, well, we got only 2 applicants. Let's interview both of them. And then you would have had a chance to go to an interview, right? And present yourself well and things like that. So never count yourself out when it comes to those job postings. And a lot of times on those job postings, it might say all of that stuff and you ain't even doing none of that stuff. You won't even be doing any of that stuff, right? They just want to know if you're a team player, if you know how to handle conflict well, are you a problem solver? Is your schedule flexible? I've seen some jobs where they were in such a crutch where they were, like on a hiring spree. And really, all they wanted to know was, were people willing to work overtime? Okay, when you get in the interview, ask the people, are they willing to work overtime? If so, they good. Because we want people, well, of course, because we're going to train them, right? We're going to train them, but all we need to know is if they're willing to work that overtime. If they willing to work that overtime, we good. So, but you looking at the requirements, you say, oh, I don't even got that and got that. I ain't even gonna apply. Don't do that. You missing out on your opportunity. You missing out on your opportunity, right? So, these are also people who don't like to be called experts, even though you have the skills and the knowledge that indicates that you are. There are a lot of people who have these specializations and things like that, specializations, in different areas, but they don't really want to be called the expert. They might say things like, oh, I've just had a lot of experience. I've worked with these type of clients a lot. But I wouldn't call myself an expert. They don't like to be called that. Because they're always seeking more knowledge. They're always seeking more trainings and things like that. This is also, I mentioned this before, another way that you can kind of overcome this is by only, getting those certifications and those trainings when you need it. Don't just get it just because. Don't waste your energy on that, because really too, you can't really figure out, if you don't have any plans to use it, or if you're not looking for a different type of opportunity as far as your career, like, when are you really going to use it? And who are you? Most of these people, when you talk about imposter syndrome, they're doing these things for themselves, really. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, because some of these types are thinking about what other people are thinking, but they're doing things for themselves and thinking this about themselves. So it's kind of an odd place to be, really. Also, the expert can also try mentoring other people. So if you're mentoring maybe entry level workers, or mentoring college students about the knowledge and the things that this may help reduce those feelings of inadequacy for you, because now you feel like, okay, I am really helping someone, because they don't know. They knew. They don't really know what's going on, or again, they haven't had the chance to apply the skills that they're learning. They haven't been in that real world experience, that practical work world, right? So you're going to be assisting them and helping them learn these things. So that may be a way that you can kind of overcome, that type of imposter syndrome of, wanting to that expert type of place. What else do I have? So, okay, those are the 5 types of imposter syndrome. I gave you all some tips on how to overcome, each type if you have experienced that. But the biggest thing also that I want to say in this live is, to sum it up, you've got to be kind to yourself, right? Again, imposter syndrome is about feeling like you're inadequate, feeling like you're incompetent, you don't really know what you're doing. And, it's a normal feeling for some, at some point in our careers and in our lives and things like that. But you can't let it, take over. You don't want it to take over your life and consume you, right? And interfere with your daily activities. So make sure that you are kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Nobody is perfect, right? It takes time to develop into the type of person that you want to be, in the type of, in the career that you want to get into. It takes time to learn that, to develop, to really perfect it, right? And then also the last thing is to embrace your uniqueness. Everybody is unique in their own profession. Everybody is unique in the way that they do things. So it's okay to celebrate your own uniqueness. So I hope that I was able to bring value to you all in this live today. Thank you so much for watching. For those who have subscribed, thank you so much for your subscriptions. I really appreciate you all. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting on? This channel is all about mental health. This is where you can get your questions answered, and we make sure that mental health is not taboo. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.